Absolutely right. This was a win that Coach Smith said in his press conference earlier today that really said something about the character of the team. It was a test that, quote, they passed with flying colors. So that really does say something about the team and the makeup, especially going against a team, the Jets, that's number one in defense, great pass defense, something that you thought the Falcons were going to have trouble with considering the injuries that they had. But the Falcons' defense came to play as well. Close game. It took 58 minutes for the team to take a lead, but when they held on to it and they got things done. And interestingly enough, Coach Smith said after the game the playoff question wasn't even addressed until after the game. It was something that wasn't going to motivate the team one way or the other in terms of they didn't want that to affect them long term over these past couple of games.
You mentioned defense showed up and played very well. Really, as you said, one of the probably total four-quarter efforts we've seen out of that defense.
They did, and when you look at it, one thing you say, okay, this defense back at the beginning of the year, everyone said maybe they're not going to be as in trouble as everyone thought they were going to be. They were going to do some things. Well, what were they doing? They were getting turnovers. That was the key, and here you go. Here we are. We're in Week 15. It's probably a little too late, definitely a little too late in terms of playoff consideration, but the defense started to get turnovers again with Thomas DeCoux and Brent Grimes getting 2 interceptions. The last one sealed the game. And then a little luck and also a little good special teams play. 3 field goals the Jets either botched or blocked. There was the botch, and then Brent Grimes had the big tackle to avoid anything happening after that busted play. And then Chauncey Davis gets a block later on, and then the swirling wind, Jay Feely misses a kick. So took advantage of those as well, and taking advantage of what an opponent gives you is something the team has struggled with this year as well.
As you mentioned, they got the blocked field goal late, which they turned around into a scoring drive. So I believe gives them the lead. That's something that, again, you haven't seen a whole lot of against the number one defense that day. Falcons hadn't moved the ball that well, and then to put together a drive in the final few minutes of the game, again, showed a little resolve of that football team.
Well, more importantly, to put together a drive with your quarterback, Matt Ryan, who had missed 2 starts. He was coming back from turf toe, and obviously you would think his toe's not going to feel too great the next day being that cold, but toughed it out. Coach Smith said that as well, that he's sore, but he goes in the fourth quarter. His numbers weren't stellar leading up to that. He only completed 16 passes the whole game, but when they needed him, he came out and led a drive. And Jason Stelling playing for Michael Turner again, 20-yard run to set up that game-winning touchdown throw. So when the team needed its players, especially its young players, they rose to the occasion. And that's something that fans, whether you get to this 9-7 or not, you hope you see it over the last 2 games of these younger players starting to get it, things just start to click a little bit, and maybe these close games will go the other way in 2010.
J. Michael Moore, AtlantaFalcons.com, joining us here on the Afternoon Blitz. Michael Turner goes down after, I believe, just 1 carry on the game. Saw where he stopped short of saying they did it on purpose, but said, hey, the teams are going to be going after my ankle, knowing that I've had some injury bugs with it this year.
Well, Coach Smith reviewed the film, and you look at it, and the team has said, no, there's no ill will. It's one of those things that just happened. I'm sure that is the case, but it's like anything else. When you have a player who is injured or you have a weakness, whether it be because of an injury or because of just something they cannot physically do, but their body does not allow them to, you try to take advantage of that. You try to force a guy to run right if he's not very good running right, or try to force the ball into his left hand if he can't hold the ball very well. Adrian Peterson's an example of that. He tends to fumble more times running in one direction than the other. So, again, I don't think that it's something that to worry about, that teams are going to attack that long term, because he is a quick healer and he'll eventually overcome this and get back to his normal self, normal Pro Bowl 1,600-yard self. But in this game, yeah, definitely. It was cold. The ankle probably didn't react the way that he thought it was going to, and now he's got to get back to doing a little rehab and see if he can heal quickly again.
Talking with J. Michael Moore, AtlantaFalcons.com, how much of the injuries to not only Michael Turner, but Jarius Norwood's missed a lot of time. You've had injuries on the offensive line. Matt Ryan's missed a couple of games. If some of those games are coming back on the field instead of on the sidelines healing, is this a different team, or are they still probably a 7-7 team at this point?
It's a different team. The injuries definitely played a role, I think, in at least one of the losses. You look back at that Philadelphia loss where you had 4 offensive starters out, I believe 5 starters out overall. You had Chris Redmond starting his first game, and a very long time, and that was something that really changed the scope of what was going to happen. You go back to that New Orleans game, great offensive game plan. here just a couple of weeks ago to take advantage of the strengths of Chris Redmond. You did not have Michael Turner again. But again, you didn't have Pro Bowler out there. You didn't have Michael Turner out there. You didn't have Matt Ryan, the guy who took a ton of reps. The starting quarterback in this league takes a whole lot of repetitions in practice. The backup doesn't get that many. So Matt Ryan just flat out had the physical experience with the offense. So a couple games may have went differently, but you look, especially the New Orleans game, you had a chance to win anyway. And all these guys get paid to come in and play well as backups too, and they really take advantage and relish that moment as well. But the injuries earlier in the season on defense changed what the team could do, I believe, in terms of getting after the quarterback. They took some time readjusting to that, and that probably hurt them more in terms of picking up the wins to get to the playoffs.
And you're looking at this team now, obviously, they have some goals left, but you look towards 2010 as far as making that run towards the playoffs once again. If you're Thomas Dimitroff, how are you evaluating this football team simply because there are so many games lost to injury? Your top couple of draft picks really didn't play much at all this year due to injury. How do you go back and evaluate where your weaknesses are when some of your newer pieces, maybe some of your pieces that you were counting on, just didn't play all that much?
Well, one thing that Thomas Dimitroff and his staff, I believe, is very good at, and you can see from the 2008 draft class when Matt Ryan was able to come in and play right away, Sam Baker was able to come in and play right away. They have a good idea when they draft these guys out of college if they can make an impact or not. So you go back to your film. William Moore is an interesting case, the second-round pick. I'm sure the team wanted to see him on the field a little bit, what he could do. But Thomas DeCoux, of course, has stepped in and played very well at free safety, and Eric Coleman has the flexibility to play at strong safety. So they were okay at that position. But you did get a glimpse of Parade Jerry. You see what he can do as a dynamic player on the interior of the defensive line. I think they were looking forward to getting him back at full strength because it changes, again, the pass rush and what they can do to get to the quarterback. But you do just go back to that tape that you had from college because you trusted it once, you trust it again, and then you look and figure out where that, again, long-term weakness might be. Maybe it's cornerback, maybe it's safety, maybe it's another body on the defensive line. But they've got a pretty good hold on that and are going to have to get a little bit more creative this year because as of right now, no second-round pick for the Falcons in the 2010 draft. That went to Kansas City for Tony Gonzalez. So you got one shot basically the first several hours of the draft to get a body in here.
If you're looking at it, is it all about helping the pass rush at this point?
Not necessarily. I think you got to take and put the whole body of work into play and also look at the free agency, restricted free agency, and let's go ahead and say it too, with the CBA and the presence of an uncapped year, at least for now, with no new collective bargaining agreement, that changes how guys go into free agency. You'll have guys who will be restricted free agencies a little longer than before they go into unrestricted free agency. I believe it goes to 6 years or 5 years instead of 4. So that changes the makeup of your team and where guys might be going. And you may have to address a spot where you have a departure. Maybe it's the offensive line, maybe it's somewhere else. But you have to take that all into account.
I'm with J. Mike Moore, AtlantaFalcons.com. And finally, J. Mike, how important is the 9-7 mark that they still have an opportunity to achieve? I know Mike Smith and others, if you asked them directly, would give you the line of, well, of course you want to win all the ball games, and it's important to finish with as best record as possible, but just getting that back-to-back winning season so guys like me will quit asking about it. How important is that?
I don't know really in terms of the guys in the locker room. They're definitely aware of it. They've been hearing about it since August or May when everyone started to go ahead and bubble that back up to the surface. Like, hey, remember you went 11-5 last year. You got a chance. But Coach Smith is very big on goal setting, and he sets goals, the team sets goals that we never hear about in the media. He's very careful to say these are goals set inside the locker room, in the meeting room. We're not going to share them, but he said today that a lot of those goals are still attainable. So I would like to think with all the talk about it, guys hear about it when they go out on the street and talk to fans. We hear about it on AF.com in terms of the message boards and people talking in an R2-way conversation. It's out there. You definitely want to put it to bed. So that's definitely going to be in the back of everybody's minds, if not in the front of their minds, is one of their goals that might be written on the board in the team meeting room. But I know from my standpoint as a staffer and as a de facto fan of this team, because I'm here every day, I definitely would love to see a 9-7 record.